with the great festival lined up. This next guy coming to speak, phenomenal speaker right here. He is the author of 2 books, most recently on healthy families. He's also a podcaster and a YouTuber, and he's a wellness program director at the Stanford Inn. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Sid Garza.
How's it going? Sid Garza Hillman, just FYI. Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good? Good. Thanks for being here. Okay, shall we get into this? Raising Healthy and Happy. Did you notice my clever use of all caps on that title? You want to know why? It's because for me, happiness trumps health. And for me, health is a tool to achieve happiness. And the reason I talk about that is because I like to keep it in the context of a sort of a bigger picture item. I think, I don't want to say my problem, but I will say my concern in doing what I do these days is that people are thinking too much about food. They're too hyper-focused on food. And this will become very clear in the way that I frame this in terms of children and raising healthy families. We live in a very odd time. I'm a parent of 3. Here, I'll prove it to you. Watch. Wait for it. Boom. Street cred. Street cred. I will tell you, so those are twins and they're a little older now. By the way, just for transparency's sake, these are actually not my children. I hired them. My children were raised 100% plant-based, so they don't have any protein or calcium, so they literally they're kind of like, they have no bones and stuff. So the picture is horrific. I was like, I can't show that picture, so I hired some meat eaters to just kind of pop up there. But they're cute. I mean, for real. We live in an unprecedented time. It's a very odd time. And here's what I mean. Recently on my podcast, I talked about an article in The Atlantic that was talking about the rise of social media use with teens and how it's correlated proportionally with higher rates of suicide and depression. And yet at the same time, they're a safer generation than ever before. Safer generation than ever before. That means they're kind of at home all the time, and they're on their social media platforms and their phones, and they're physically safe. And yet we can, in this world today, be physically safe and yet not healthy or happy. What a weird thing. In the wild, we were parenting our children in a very immediate, survival-based picture. Eat that, don't eat that. Don't walk over, they fell off the cliff. Okay, let's have another one. It was like immediate. We had safety concerns and survival concerns, and we still do today as parents, but it's subtle now. We can keep our kids nice and safe at home, and then they're not happy and healthy, and they're committing suicide and having high levels of depression. It's a very weird thing, and my God, did this take a turn for the depressing, this talk. I really meant this to be more fun, and now I'm sad. I'm kidding. And so here's what I'm talking about. This is how weird this is. And I'm a certified nutritionist. So maybe some of you know who I am. Maybe you thought, okay, we're going to talk food. We're going to talk protein. He's going to tell us what to feed our children on day 3 and also on Thursdays. We're going to dial that in. As long as we know that barbecue tofu is on Thursdays, we're going to be okay. The problem is that there are very real challenges to raising your children vegan. And number 2, it's a choice. Now think about this for a second. Again, I harken back, my podcast is called Approaching the Natural, so I'm sort of in that mindset of us as being animals. In the wild, walking around the wild, we didn't go, so do you guys feel like Italian or Mexican tonight? Healthy food versus not healthy food. We would eat. We would find food and we would eat. If there was no plants around, we'd go get an animal. Paleo diet, schmaleo diet is ridiculous. If there's plants everywhere, we're going to eat those things. Today, we got plants aplenty. We don't need to eat a single animal ever again for any reason. We have them. So far, so good. Plants. But the point is this is a choice now. And when you make a choice, all of a sudden the things that you used to never think about, even before you became vegan, you walk into Starbucks and you see your baked goods area and you don't go, what's the most nutritionally sound? You don't look at a menu in a restaurant and go, what's the most nutritionally sound? You go, what do I feel like? Right? We go, what does that look good? Does that sound good? Does this get me high? Or does this get me high? That gets me the highest. I'll have that, please. Thank you very much. And now you make a choice for whatever reason, for health or for the environment or for the compassion. For me, it's all ethical, by the way, under one umbrella of ethics, how we self-care. Not about weight loss, for crying out loud. It's how about self-care. It's about nourishment and how that gets out into all areas of your life, including the earth and the other animals and all that. It's all under one thing. But all of a sudden, now you're making a choice. And when you do that, you're thinking about something that you did not think about before. Again, when you choose that menu, you're not using your rational, like, this is a better thing. You're going by feel. But when you make a choice to be vegan, now you go to that Starbucks counter, and 104% of the things you won't eat because they're not vegan. And you have to make a choice to do that because you feel like that butter croissant. It sounds amazing. But you go, but no, that's not something I want to do. That's a weird thing to have to choose something that you weren't before. What I call it is we're an ethical minority. When you make a choice to act on principle, regardless of how you were raised, I was not raised plant-based, and regardless of how you might feel in the moment, I still crave Big Macs. I'm not joking. If I drive by McDonald's, I kind of glance sideways. Because I was raised on McDonald's. Saturday soccer game, McDonald's afterwards. Very fun memories. Super fun memories. And I can taste a Big Mac like it's there. And yet I don't want to do it. I literally don't want to do it. So it's not conflict for me. I just don't do it. I kind of let that feeling go. But it's a choice. Okay, now let's talk about kids. Now, as a parent, you're even going one step further. Who here has kids? I hope most of you. Otherwise, why would you come to this talk? That's pathetic. You have children. Who here is married? Good, you're married? Tell the rest of the crowd how easy it is to maintain a happy marriage. You just phone it in. Am I right? I've been married 23 years. We don't do we never discuss. It's easy. It's been easy from day one. It's like nothing. And when you have kids, also super easy, right? You have kids and they just kind of come out and then they just hang out and you just throw food at them and stuff. It's a challenge. It's a challenge that we choose to bring onto our already stressful lives in the modern world. Maybe we're vegan and maybe we already are grappling with the choice of having to go to a party after party and be told what we can't eat. You love that? You can't have that and you can't have that. And I always go, I'm 48. I can have anything on that table. I just don't want to. That's a choice. That's a different thing than me saying I can't. And on top of that stress, now we put kids in the world. And now we've got the doctor telling us we're going to poison our children by not feeding them animal foods. This was given to my wife 9 years ago in the doctor's office. It's called A Good Start Nutrition During Pregnancy. I was in school to become a nutritionist when I got this pamphlet. And I looked through it and I was like, there's some nutty nut stuff in there. And then I looked at the very bottom. How's your eyesight? Pretty good? Good. Read that by the 8 out loud. Copyright 1988, yeah.
Copyright 1988, revised 1992, National Cattlemen's Beef Association.
So you're trying to raise a kid, in theory, a healthy and happy child. A child that grows up potentially to make their own choices and to be empowered and intelligent and wise enough from hopefully the teachings that you imparted to forge a life that is of happiness for them and maybe the kids that they have and so on and so forth. And in that context, we're scared because we've read other stuff, but then we see this thing and it tells us the message here, by the way, you can it doesn't even forget about vegan because that's crazy, right? But it says you can have a vegetarian pregnancy, but just check with your physician. Listen to the messaging there. You can do it, but it's risky. So on top of the fear we already have about having kids, every time I drop my children off at school, every time I drop them off at school, it's a safe school. It's a nice school. It's fine. Public school up a little town where I live in. And yet because of this thing, I know that horrible things happen at schools. So every single day I drop my kids off at school, in the back of my mind, just for a second, I go, have a good day, but then there's the fear on top of everything else. The point I'm trying to make is I'm trying to establish a baseline foundation that you have to understand, which is we're already stressed in the modern world. It's already hard to forge a life of happiness and health. Now you're choosing something on top of that, adding more stress, having your family members mad at you because you're feeding your kid vegan and they think you're poisoning them, and where they get the protein and I can do everything you need to know in 5 minutes about nutrition. I can teach you everything you need to know about nutrition in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I really, really can. We know way more, but we don't need to know 1/100th of what we know. We let that stuff get in the way. Everyone becomes vegan, and then they want to sit in lecture after lecture. Where were you before you were vegan? You were sitting in lectures then. Now you want vegan. I want to know everything about vitamin B6. Go. And it's like, but you never asked before. There's plenty of us vegan. We're doing just fine. What I want to do is I want to set up people for success. And that's not like a trite motivational speaker. Set up for success. What I mean is that we are as human beings designed, I believe, to be healthy and happy. This is an argument I make. We're designed to be, the trillions of things going on in your bodies right now are not to kill you. They're not to make you sick. They're trying to make you survive and detoxify and digest and repair and fight infection. That's all happening right now, regardless of the personalities of you. The bodies are like, go listen to the dude, but listen, can I just get this business done? That's a natural design. I think our minds are designed for joy. I think we don't want to look for more stress. I think when we're in stressful situations, we try to dissipate that stress. And we can dissipate that a bunch of different ways. Drugs and alcohol are perfect for that thing. It's not healthy, but they do solve that problem on the day. So on top of all that stuff, in that search for pleasure, I want to hopefully help you guys with the tools I talk about here, set yourselves up for success. But I first want to lay that foundation, which is you are doing something that is harder than you were before. It's easier to send your kids to school, let them eat whatever the school serves. It is easier for you to send your kids to a birthday party and have them eat whatever they're serving at the birthday party. It is. Do you agree? It is easier. Yes, it is easier. The question is it better? And in all the work that I do with people, I never sell struggle-free. Ever. Ever. Like a marriage that we enter into knowing that it's additional challenge. Why do we do it? Because it adds to the meaning of our lives. It adds to the fulfillment of our lives. Same goes for kids. Why do we do it? Because it's a meaningful human thing to have children, and we want to do it the best we can, but we want to do it in a way that ensures our success. And I'm saying you got to figure out a way to do that in context of even added stress by doing it. On top of the stress, again, now you're making a choice. That's a rough thing. One of the things I talk about is the MOT, which is the most of the time. Sometimes when we learn about food or we learn about techniques or something, we go, now if I have anything less than 100% healthy, I'm going to die. I work at a vegan resort called the Stanford Inn, and we get people sometimes who are, and there's no judgment, well, there's a little bit of judgment. I hear people go, don't judge. It's like, judge more. Let's judge. That's why I'm vegan, because I judge. People who come in that are oil-free. And yeah, oil's junk food. It's junk food. Fine. So is this coffee. And by the way, the Stanford, and we brought our own coffee maker, because I speak at Veg Fest all over the country. Nobody has coffee. We brought our own coffee maker to a Veg Fest. Swear to God. Stop by the table. We'll pour you a cup. The point is that people show up and they're oil-free, and they're on vacation. And what I'm finding is that the knowledge all of a sudden that you read that oil is bad for you, and now all of a sudden a drop of oil is going to kill you. And it's not. Sorry, it's not going to kill you. None of us in the modern world do everything 100%, period. And when we try sometimes that we get out of balance. Again, how is this relevant to children? Because all of a sudden we're foisting this kind of militancy and rigidity on our children. We don't want children with food issues, do we? And by the way, you'll get accused for making your children have food issues, as if people with food issues are all vegan, right? Has anybody here had the cold or a flu? Anybody here had a cold or a flu? It's because you're vegan. Notice when you're vegan, anything bad that happens to you after you decide to be vegan is because you're vegan. Everything that happens to you bad. God, my joint aches because you're vegan. Okay. The most of the time concept is, and it really is what I believe to be true, which is that your health and happiness are determined by what you do most of the time. When you try to do something all of the time because you learned it and now you can't do anything other than 100% of that, I'm going to have a 100% healthy meal, but then I'm going to drive a car. That's unhealthy. I'm going to turn on my perfect temperature control so that my body's never in discomfort. That's unhealthy. But all my eggs are in this basket. My point is how you raise healthy and happy children is by making sure that you are clear as a parent where you stand on militancy and rigidity. Because what you do as a parent is going to your kids whether you like it or not. I'll sort of finish up the talk with that whole bad boy, but this is what I'm talking about. Raising healthy parents, that's what this is about. If you thought I was going to come here and tell you how to talk to your kids about how to eat well, this comes from you. This is about how do you make yourself healthy and happy in the context of you being vegan. I've worked with many parents who are vegan, but they don't want to risk it with their kids. Now, I've had my children standing next to me and people go, oh my God, you raised your children plant-based? And I'm like, they're standing right there and look okay. They're not like, in boils and sores and open wounds. Yeah, I know. But it's good for the animals, whatever. But the point is that like people literally look at it and sometimes they say, oh, you're raising your kids plant-based. I bet you have to be really careful. And you know what I say? I go, yeah, I do. I do have to be really careful. Just not as careful as people who feed their kids milk and meat. And that's the absolute truth. I do have to be careful. We all have to be careful because you can be vegan and wildly unhealthy. And so what is this really about then? Is it about vegan or is it about here as parents? Is it about our job as parents to make our lives better? I call it holistic self-interest. Again, I think we're designed to be happy and healthy personally. I think we're looking that out for ourselves. And this whole altruistic, I got to put my life on hold for the good of my kids, I think it's crap. I think it's bad for the kids to do that. I think it's bad to put your life on hold and make your body unhealthy and your mind unhealthy and mad and angry and fatigued and vulnerable because you're not doing anything for yourself and it's all kid focused because they see what's going on with you and they learn from the example that you set. Again, more on that in a minute. I think it is about us realizing that because we're designed in self-interest, and if we do that better, not to turn off ourselves, but to be more selfish. And what I mean is expand that concept of selfishness to include why we are becoming vegan in the first place. Do we choose something that is harder because we want to live a worse life? Anybody in here decide to be vegan or vegetarian or thinking about it because you want to have a less happy life? No. You're here because you're at least open to the idea or have already jumped into the idea of improving your life, of feeling better, not just because you're eating broccoli, but because you're not partaking in the madness that is the animal agricultural area and the environmental impacts of that. The statistics are there. And everybody I've ever met, by the way, and I'm sure there's people who are not like this, but most people I know or meet, if they're driving down the road and a squirrel runs through the street, they're going to swerve. We have that in us. We're humane. But when we're scared to death because of absolute travesties like this, and we do things that are in conflict with our values, which is that I don't think anybody really wants to torture animals. I don't think so. I think everybody wants to be healthy and happy. And if we become more selfish, then we apply more thought. Instead of trying not to be selfish and trying not to tend to ourselves, we say, let me embrace this so that I can do my job as a parent better. Again, remember happy in all caps? You can force your child to be vegan. You can just force your child to be vegan. My daughter's 13 now, my oldest, and a couple years ago, they were having a pizza party at school. And she said, why can't I have cheese pizza? Why can't I have the cheese pizza that they're serving? Because we were going to send her some sort of Amy's, whatever. And I said, you can. I said, you can have cheese pizza. This was very hard for me as a parent. I'm vegan. My wife is vegan. She was vegan for all 3 pregnancies. 2 of them happened at the same time, for crying out loud. I had to make a decision as a parent at that moment, which was, do I want my child to be vegan because I force her to be? so that she either does what I tell her because my dad told me, or she does the opposite of what I tell her in secret and feels maybe shame and guilt about it or rebels against it? Do I want either of those scenarios? No, I don't. She's 11. She was old enough to understand without me ever showing her a YouTube video, which I will never, ever do. I stumble upon them now and then on some crazy slaughterhouse thing, and I'm like, 2 days later, I'm awake at 3 a.m. My wife's like, why do you watch those things? You already decided what you're like, you've been vegan 15 years. Jiminy Christmas. I was like, I stumbled upon it. I said, you can eat that cheese pizza. And I said, here's 2 things I want you to understand if you eat this cheese pizza. First of all, you're disowned. No, I'm joking. I said, first... I'm joking because there's no assets. Anyway, so I said two things I want you to understand. 1, you could have a stomach ache. Just so you know, you've never had dairy in your life besides your mother's breast milk. You ever get nailed on that one? Are your kids vegan? I go, yes. What about breast milk? You got me. Good one. I said you might have a little bit of a stomach ache because you've never had cow's milk. The second thing I said is, I don't want you to feel bad about it. So you need to do your own thinking. And I said, by the way, don't tell your mom or me. It is up to you now. You have that or you don't. Don't come back and report to me. You got this. It's up to you. But think about it, because I don't want you to feel bad about it. If you have a taste and you don't feel bad about it because it's a little taste and it really is just a little taste, then do that and really don't tell me about it. This was very difficult for me as a parent. This is very difficult for me and my wife. And it was a decision we made and just kind of let her sort of do that. I don't want her to rebel. I want her to understand why we do what we do. And she does. She takes horse riding lessons and it's down the street in this big field and there's all these cows, and she's been doing on a trail ride and there's cows being branded and she's heard them scream. She knows that. I didn't tell her that. I didn't go, by the way, you should check this thing out and it'll depress you for a week. But she knows. And I said, look, I just don't want you to feel bad, but you don't have to tell us. Now, roll the dice. She didn't eat it. So good outcome. But I had to understand as a parent that I had to really let that go, like for real. I couldn't then, say, oh, you ate the cheese. I had to be like, for real. That means this was 97.2% about my confidence in my own decisions and my own awareness of why I myself am vegan, and my wife as well. I'm making this about me because I'm the one talking up here. My wife's at home. She's hanging out. What am I? She has a Sunday off. I had to make it about me. See where I'm getting with this? You guys thought I was going to talk about protein? Did you really? Really? This is about the parents and our ability to implement our values into the world and to our children. And do that in an authentic and real way. Not do it, but I'm not going to do it. But you do it. That's what we love to do. We love to look outward on everything. Yeah. And parents go, and spouses sometimes come to me and they go, my spouse is totally not into this, and I'm eating really well and they're not. And I go, yeah, that's not your problem. And this is married. I go, you can't take care of yourself better. If there's any chance for your spouse to come on board, it's because you're going to do your job better for you, and you're going to be happier in your marriage, and they are going to see that change. Whether they change or not, it's out of your hands anyway. People sometimes say, oh, you're brainwashing your children. And I go, yeah, because that's the job of a parent. We brainwash our kids. Our kids come out and they're just like, what, and we just feed them stuff. And the thing is, and I don't mean food, we do, but also other non-food things we feed them, like values and decisions and choices and tools and tricks. And we do that no matter what. No matter what, that is happening. If you check out as a parent and go, I let them eat whatever they want, I'm empowering them to make their own food choices. Okay, that's very fair, because obviously for adults, we have no problem being healthy as adults in this world. I mean, seriously, the frontal cortex, that little part of your brain that helps you make a choice even if you feel like not doing it, 25 years to mature. 25 years to mature. I talk about this in my book. Don't send your kids into the market and go, whatever you feel like it, because they're going to do what we do when we don't have thought attached to our choices. They're going to choose what what feels better and get to them high. That's what we're designed. Adults can get a little bit better about that, but look at what the challenge is for adults and multiply by 100 for a kid who hasn't learned how to sort of navigate that whole thing. You're the parent. Your job is to brainwash your child. That's exactly what you're there supposed to do. This is a big one for me, restriction versus choice. And what I mean by that, and this other talk I do sometimes is called Making the Trade, Perceptions of Restriction in the Vegan Lifestyle, because people who aren't vegan yet, or sometimes people who are, take on a restrictive mentality about it. They go, I'm sure you've heard this, right? I could never give up cheese. I could never give up cheese. I could never give up cheese. They could never. What's that? Oh yeah, no, totally. I mean, and somehow you did. I don't know how. Somehow you grabbed the strength in the depth of your soul to not eat cheese anymore. But the underlying message there is that this is a restrictive choice. The underlying message is that cheese, or not cheese. See, I'm already thinking about cheese. Nice one. You got me to do that. It's a restrictive thing. I could never do that. The idea is if I did what you're doing, I would be more miserable. Isn't that amazing? In 1992, I gave up dairy, cured myself of asthma. Gave up dairy in 1992, cured myself of asthma. Didn't even know what brown rice was. I mean, I really wasn't. I was a philosophy major in college, graduated with a BA in philosophy, did exactly what philosophy majors do, which is that I was pursuing a career in indie rock. I was a lifelong asthmatic, singer, gave up dairy, my asthma goes away. Pretty cool thing. If you look at food, and we like to look at food just by food, that's a restrictive choice. It was by definition, it's a restrictive choice. I was eating this thing and now I restricted my diet to not eat that thing. Restriction. But what if I look at the entirety of my life? What if I look at my music career and the fact that I went for runs and didn't have an inhaler anymore? Then all of a sudden, this thing that looked restrictive was about the least restrictive thing I've ever done. Why? Because I broadened my view of restriction and said, you know what, this isn't actually restrictive at all. This made my life better. And then, of course, the taste buds come along, and I love food just like I do. And people can't believe that. You know, they think we just are miserable. Just lettuce again. Oh, my God. Somehow, we actually feel better for doing these things. Why? Because it's a bigger picture than food, for crying out loud. It's about life. It's about an earth that we want. It's about, I heard a quote that Joan Stanford, the Conan the Inn, and I'm totally going to misquote this, and who said it too, so I apologize. But it was like, it's not the world that we want to leave our children. It's what kind of children do we want to leave the world? Like, a great quote. What kind of world do we want to leave our children? What about the children that we are forming as parents? What about that? Here are the Garza Hillman list of values in my home. And we don't have them on like a whiteboard or anything, so sort of understood. Like the worst house ever. Kids, read the rules. It's Friday. We don't cheat. We don't lie. We don't harm animals. We don't steal. We don't hurt people. Do you see where animals was in there? Why is food such a big frickin' deal? Why is food food sit outside of all that stuff? We don't hurt animals, so we don't eat them. It's like I don't want to talk about it too much. People act like it's this major thing when we're vegan, but they talk compassion. They're talking compassion. Nobody wants to torture animals I've ever met. So why is it a big deal? It's not a big deal. It really isn't a big deal. Because it's food and because we have nostalgia and ritual and tradition attached to food, we put a human-made construct on that food that is of utmost importance. But if it's a value like anything else, then make it a value like anything else. Communicating the vegan, can I get an amen? Communicating the vegan ethic is simply put it in the list, man. It's just the things that we do. I like to devalue. In my podcast, I barely talk about food now because people are freaking talking about food too much. It's not about food. It's really not. Even if you're choosing to make yourself feel better, that's really not about food. That's an ethical choice of self-care. If you're choosing to not harm animals because it's a value, you don't believe in harming animals, you think it's bad, then it's not a food issue either. You're expressing that value in food. You're expressing it in how you act, but it's about the value first. And that value comes from thought, remember? It's about the choice that you make, and now you act on that choice because of what you know. Restriction versus choice is saying, this isn't restrictive, and this is how we have to sell this, though. This is how we have to sell it. Not to other people, kind of, but to our kids. We have to, as parents, not walk around feeling like we're restrictive and feeling like we're unhealthy and unhappy for a whole host of reasons, because our kid's going to go, why would I? Have you ever met an angry vegan? Do we have angry things to be angry about? Yes. When you read that stuff, of course you do. But if you embody that anger every day, if you walk out of your door forgetting that the reason why you chose this is because you want a better world for your kids and for everybody else, you want to live in a more peaceful place, a healthier, more vibrant place, then the anger is there, but it's not forefront. It's not going to influence the people that are in your life. Example is not the main thing in influencing others, it's the only thing. Albert Schweitzer. You want to raise healthy and happy children, here's the tough pill to swallow. Make yourself healthier and happier as a parent. Don't apologize for that. Do not apologize for that. Of course we want to teach our children. We want to teach them well. And we may read parenting books. People think my new book's is a parenting book. I'm not subscribing a way to tell your kids how to do homework. It's called Raising Healthy Parents, because I want parents to finally say, you know what, this is about me. And that's how it should be, because you are the teacher and you are setting the example. And the better you do by you, the better you do by them. Sure, tell them what to do and teach them and advise them also. But if it comes from a place of joy and happiness and health and vibrancy, that message gets through way better than it does, do that because I told you to. They may do that, they may not do that, don't know, but if you set a good example, period. Every time, again, I'm going to say it again, every time I drop my children off from school, earlier this year, my now 13-year-old got harassed by a teacher's aide for being vegan. And for a series of 10 days, just constant look at the vegetarian freak. And then later, I was just kidding. Because 13-year-old kids aren't self-conscious already. The only vegan kid in the entire school. And we went to the mat. My daughter said, please don't talk about it. Please don't talk to the principal. I said, I literally have no choice. You want to talk about choice? I had no choice. I had no choice because I knew exactly where I stood on this subject, and as uncomfortable it was for me to do it, I wanted to make sure as a parent I lived that example of no, I have your back here. That's what I do as a parent, and I'm sorry that you're uncomfortable, so am I. But if I don't do anything about this, we both suffer in this arrangement. My wife, obviously, part of the whole deal. And so I went to the mat. And it's turned into a nasty, we pulled her out of the school, crazy stuff. Why would I put myself through this? Why would I be an ethical minority? Why would any of you be an ethical minority? Why would you put yourselves through something that is harder than it was before, because the world is already hard already? Why would you do that? Sometimes when I talk about nutrition, I happen to like single malt scotch. Sue me. People go, you're a nutritionist and you like single malt scotch? I go, I'm a nutritionist so I can drink single malt scotch. And when I talk about nutrition, sometimes when I do the nutrition thing, I talk about light box, heavy box, don't worry about it. But I go, eggs are healthier than single malt scotch. So I go, if it's about health, why then do I never eat an egg, but I'll have a scotch on occasion? Somebody answer that. Boom. For non-nutritional reasons. This is why it's not about food for me, or I don't think for anybody. It's non-nutrition. The reason why I never have an egg and I'll have a scotch on occasion, it has nothing to do with nutrition, because if it had something to do with nutrition, I'd eat the egg before I drink the scotch. We put ourselves through this because, again, we are doing what we want to do, or not, but we have an idea that we want the world to be a better place for us. And yes, it is for you. Even if you want to raise your kids happy, that's because that's fulfilling for you to do a good job as a parent. We take on that stuff yes, because we want to do a good job and we want to feel good. It is really about us, whether we want to deny that or not. And we put ourselves through this because it is worth it for us. It's worth it to be in marriages. It's worth it to have children. It's worth it to have friendships, healthy friendships. We connect and we're tribal, and we want to do this better. Am I out of time?
Well, I was just going to say, I think you're an excellent speaker, and everybody here is walking the earth as did Jesus, Gandhi, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta. But it is time for us now to double and triple our efforts to shut down the slaughterhouse on behalf of our children. I am Peter, King of Masterpiece Theater. We are on the right path, but we must rise up to be the leader and shut things down. And the prophecy is on the full moon is our high noon. We shut down the labor, shut down the schools, shut down the entire system for 40 days. And what I have to offer you here also.
Wait till I'm done with my talk and you can hand that stuff out. Thanks.
Okay, I just want to say
No, right, got it. Totally got it. It is the example that we set in the way that we communicate our values that is translated to our children and to all the people that we influence in our lives. So I will finish once again. When you embody joy and health and vibrancy, when you walk out your door knowing the things that you're angry about, but also more aware of how you feel by making the choices that you make, and by doing a better job for you and for your children, the challenge of putting yourselves in this position of doing this for your children, and it is a challenge, and that bar is set very high. And yet the clearer that we get as parents on why we did this for ourselves, the clearer we communicate that to our kids, and we say to that challenge is, challenge accepted. Thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, let me know. All right, you got it.
Good job. Sid Garza, Hillman, everybody. One more time for him. One more. Informative and funny. Good job. Oh, you want to? Anybody have any questions they want to ask for Sid? Any questions out there? We know we got to have some.
What about like a vegan for kids, or like 99%, because they're always afraid when they go to potlucks and school functions and like always being anal about everything. I mean,
What if the kids are like that or the parents?
like the parents, you know?
Yeah, this is what... You can't. And this is the thing. This is where the most of the time thing comes in. We send our children with desserts to parties. They're used to that. But there's a transitional thing there. And they're used to it because they know of the values, and we sort of skate across it. But again, we just go, we eat this way because we're nice to animals. Anyway, what do you guys want to do today? We really don't dwell on it a lot. And so that's one way. The second way is if they have a little bit of something that hasn't, look, I know, sue me for this, but if they have a little bit of something at a party, but they're happier and they're not stressed about food because you're not imparting that to them, then I think it's a really good step on the way to making that a reality for real eventually. What you don't want is to create food issues with your children and to create rebellion and mutiny with your family. You don't want that because you will burn out and your family dynamic will suffer if this is a militant, do this now thing. So as much as we all want this to never happen again, we know that there are ways that we can make this happen for real, or there are ways that we can burn out or cause our lives miserable pain, and I don't think that serves anybody long term. Got it? Any other questions? And I will be at the Stanford Inn table, by the way, so I've got books and all that kind of crap. Yeah. Yeah, it was handled when I went to the principal and said, your teacher's aide is harassing my daughter. And he said, this has been a long time coming. So it turned out she had been making remarks to other kids about non-vegan things, just weird. She's just weird. And so they let her go. Great story, though. He didn't communicate all the other stuff from before. It became that our family got this lovely woman fired. She starts coming to school every day, hanging out in the parking lot. We go, this is inappropriate. He goes, I can't do anything about it. And it should create this huge, we pulled our straight A student out 3 weeks before the end of the year because it got nasty and the kids were, you got her fired. All this crazy stuff. We kept emailing, going, this is not right. And we filed a complaint. I'll leave you with this interesting tidbit. the California Department of Education determined that it was not bullying or harassment because my daughter did not fall under one of the protected classes of gender, sex, race, or religion. Beware when you get your ducks in a row before you raise your children. It's the best thing I've ever done is raise my kids vegan. Best thing ever. But man, I got to have my ducks in a row before I hit that ground running. Because this is real. That happens. It really, really does. And you got to make sure you're happy and healthy to kind of negotiate that and still maintain the family dynamic in a way that you want. Yeah.
I thought this was going to be a lecture on what foods to serve your child, beginning with birth, like what you
at that table. I will tell you everything.
Like
about
what you recommend,
Yeah.
from childhood and
Yes.
on the way up.
Yes, I will talk about that. But raising healthy and happy children is a bigger picture than food for me, and that's why I can tell you everything you need to know. We feed our kids whole plants most of the time. Literally, nuts, seeds, beans, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, that's what makes it up. We dabble in oil and white flour for treats, literally. But it's all vegan for non-nutritional reasons. There, 30 seconds.
I just wanted to thank you because I'm going through this right now with my 4-year-old, and it's awesome. And I just really appreciate it.
Well, I will tell you that what you are doing for your child, and don't put your life on hold, and make sure you're part of this process, and it's amazing. And the courage, I think we underestimate the courage of what this is to be vegan, period, but then to do it with our children, we underestimate really what that takes. For real. Do you have a question?
If you want your kids to be healthy and not just vegan, what do you do on Halloween?
My kids trick-or-treat on Halloween. They go to houses with the other kids. They collect the candy. We collect the candy and give it back to the families that aren't vegan. You eat it. And then we give our kids vegan candy. What's great? I got to get off stage. My son is 8, and we don't really talk about this, but he, of all 3 kids, has no fear or self-consciousness about the vegan thing. So last year we were in our little town trick-or-treating, and he keeps going to houses going, "Is that vegan? Is that vegan?" And I was like, oh my God, it was horrific. And then I was like, I guess screw it, I don't care. It was the funniest thing. That vegan? The people at the house, oh my God, it's a Snicker bar. I don't know. The funniest thing. Anyway, I'll be at the Stanford table, you guys. Thank you so much.
Again, one more time, Sis Garza Hillman.